Afternoon, everybody. Do you reckon I've got enough squash seeds there? Well, there's always a danger you're going to sow lots and lots, far too many. And I thought I'd finally get around to sowing some. There is quite a few here. I am under orders. I say orders. I've been requested to make sure that we've got some marrows over there and also some butternut squash for the winter, as these have been quite productive over the last couple of years. Don't worry, I'm not going to have all of these. I'll at least have half of them. The seeds that you see hopefully being sown today will be split between myself and Mama F, so we have got quite a few. What I'm going to be doing is choosing somehow the seeds that we're going to sow. We've got quite a few here, as I've already mentioned. We've got patty pan, so these are the spaceship shaped courgettes. They're quite an interesting shape really, and in comparison to say the traditional straight dark green courgettes are quite different really, quite a different variety and quite useful to cook and to use. We have got some darker shade ones here, and there's also a yellow zucchini, yellow courgette. Mum's actually said please don't sow any yellow ones, so I'm going to sneak these in and I will take those. There was a request from butternut squash, as I've already mentioned, so we're going to have a look at sowing some of those. And also a round courgette. I have sown these in the past and they're really quite abundant. Abundant is the word when it comes to courgettes and zucchini. One plant on average will give you about 4 courgette fruit a week. That's in a good week. Naturally, any weather conditions, dry weather conditions in particular, or even rain can actually influence the crop that you get, as well as the soil. I have found that planting them into open ground doesn't work. That's just for me. I've got very heavy clay on my allotment. That does not mean to say that you won't be able to plant them and sow them into your own allotment. What I'm going to do, rather than sow them direct, is to put them into these. These are Jiffy pellets. These just make my life a little bit easier. And as you can see, I'm standing here in Mama F's kitchen at her dining table, sewing things. If anybody wants to sew me a potting desk, by all means, please do. Or a potting table rather, please send me one. They're much appreciated. And these have been moistened, I guess, with water. And not cold water, hot water. Imagine if you had to dip your toes into icy cold water and grow at the same time. There are lots of pellets there, as I said, but might not all germinate. Some of these seeds are actually quite old, so I'm taking a bit of a chance on those seeds that I do actually decide to sow. So the first instance, we're going to be sowing the squash seeds straight into these pellets. The plan being that once the seed cases have cracked and the first baby leaves have come out, they've got some time to establish, and you will find that very often the roots start to escape out of the pellet. It is now April, it's towards the latter end of April, and the frost window here in the Midlands closes on the May Bank holiday at the end. Squashes grow like triffids. They grow quickly, they grow fast, and they grow very, very big. And you would think, but hang on a minute, you're sowing these right now, aren't you going to be potting them up over for the next few weeks? I'm hoping that the 6 week window that we've got, 6 to 8 week window that we've got, will allow at least a couple of leaves to form for a root system to establish, by which time they'll be hardened off as well, and then they'll be transplanted into the allotment to the prepared ground. I would ordinarily sow these a lot earlier, so I'm trying to experiment and making sure that by sowing them closer to the frost window closing, I can get a little bit better quality plants rather than have plants floating around and just growing and growing, getting frustrated at not having to do anything. So round 1 today is going to be the sowing of squash seeds, and I will have to choose very carefully as to which ones I want. As I say, they do become quite abundant, and you'll be giving away courgettes. You wouldn't do it for love nor money. It becomes quite onerous really in the middle of August when you're trying to give away a squash and nobody wants it and they're sick of the sight of them. So I am going to be very careful in what I'm going to be sowing. Mum has a preference for marrows, and in the past few years we have had some whopper of marrows. I remember currying a £5 marrow once. I'll tell you what, never again. She can have the marrows all she wants. In the past we have sown and grown a butternut squash. I think I've grown a couple maybe 2 years ago, and Mum had one last year. When you are looking at your butternut squashes, there are loads of different varieties depending on whether what your soil is, what your weather conditions are. I'm actually quite proud of the fact that you can grow a butternut squash here somewhere in Birmingham. Think about the cavity size. Yeah, it's not as dodgy as it sounds. If you've got a lot of flesh and a smaller cavity, that's a better payoff than having a larger cavity and no flesh. So have a look at varieties that are going to be appropriate and you're going to get the most out of. So that is the squashes. Next thing we're going to be doing is we are sowing some, I think today we're going to be sowing some climbing French beans. Yes, it does feel a little bit early, but again, these are not going to be put out anytime soon. What I'm going to do is put these into these modules here. Again, the water used to moisten them is warm, and the plan is to cover the tray, as with the squashes, with a propagator lid and put somewhere warm so they can germinate. The danger is though, there's too much water in there, the temperature drops overnight, and everything gets a little bit wet, damp, and the seeds rot. Hopefully, it's not too wet. Seeds will take, so it will just be a case of jabbing a hole into the modules, putting in the seed, and then wishing for the best once everything's closed. So lots of seeds being sown, and there's a lot of hope behind them. And there's still, I think, some runner beans to be sown as well, maybe some direct sown spinach rather, into the allotment plot. So that is my plan for today, to sow some squashes and also to sow some climbing French beans. Runner beans will have to wait another week or so, get my hands on some seeds. We already have on the windowsills tomatoes and chilies. I had planned to sow some more tomatoes, however I think I'm leaving a little bit late. We've already got some Marmande and Roma tomatoes, which more than amply suit our needs. However, that never rules out buying plants. I always end up panicking, thinking that I've not got enough tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is go get my hands dirty and sow some squash seeds and some climbing French beans. Hopefully that has helped inspire and guide what you might want to do. So why not get out into the sunshine and start sowing some seeds? Have a good weekend.